following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia and Fury. It's a joy to be with you all once again. And speaking of a joy, right here, right now. Okay, this was the reason I started this podcast, because there were times where I would want to find out about somebody's journey in the wrestling business, and I'd look far and wide. And I just couldn't find that in-depth interview with the individual that I was looking for. So I wanted to do it myself. I wanted to find a lot of these guys who I was very interested to find out about. This man right here, my guest this time, is definitely one of those guys. I would consider him a legend of WCW Saturday Night. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the one. This is the only. This is Dave Burkhead. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem, mate. It's really great to have the chance to talk to you, Dave. And the first question, as per usual on the show, is when you were a young man, before you got into the business, how did you become a fan of professional wrestling?
Well, you know, like everybody else, you start watching wrestling on TV, and man, I grew up with the likes of Snuka and the Don Morocco and you know, then the legendary Four Horsemen, and you know, it just the charisma and the acting that they do, and they love it, everything they have, and it's so much fun, and just getting out there, just being themselves, and seeing the fans and the joy. And I just loved it, and I just felt myself, you know what, I have that, I have to do that, and I got to do this, and I did it, and that's for sure.
Very cool. So there has to be some point in time where you need to figure out a way to get into the wrestling business. How did you go about that, and who did you get training with?
The funny question is I had a full-time job. I was just a regular, you know, guy going to work 7 o'clock in the morning, getting off 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And one day I was at this country bar, and one of the bartenders there had said, "Hey, Dave, man, you know what? I'm training at the school, you know, up in Baltimore, Maryland. Why don't you come train and play professional wrestling?" I'm like, "All right, I'll do it." So I stopped by the school. Well, when I stopped by, Axl Rotten from ECW was there. And the school was called MEWF at the time, Mid-Eastern Wrestling Federation. And he's like, "Man, I love your charisma. Why don't you come train?" I said, "Okay." So I got there, I was trained, and it was very different, very rigorous. And Axl Rotten had a couple other trainers there, but he wanted to train me personally. And I took that very, very, you know, proud, because everybody, if you know ECW, Axl Rotten at the time in the late 90s was one of the main guys, you know, and I loved it. So he told me he wanted to change my character, so I shaved part of my head. I still had I was losing my hair. He said, "We need to come up with a gimmick." And I was like, "Okay." Well, one day I was running late to work. I had to go to a party. So I was wearing like the old Don Johnson look, you know, the black pants and the black shirt, and I had a purple jacket. He said, "That's it. That's it. We're going to have you called Knuckles Zandwich with a Z." And I was like, "Knuckles Zandwich with a Z? What is that?" You know what I mean? And we're going to have you be the bouncer that comes out with a flashlight. And when you walk down the aisle, you're going to be asking for IDs. And, you know, I went every day to work 7 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And I worked in Washington, D.C. at the time. So I had to leave work at 4 o'clock, drive an hour and a half to the school, train for 2 hours, go home. I did that 5 days a week. Axl really liked my character, really liked how I really worked in the ring. And I just moved up from there. I became the Eastern Wrestling Federation. I started wrestling the likes of Raven for MEWF. I wrestled Balls Mahoney, the late Balls Mahoney, rest in peace. We had a lot of guys from ECW kind of going back and forth to MEWF, and that's how my career started. And then, like I said, you know, we could talk more about how I moved on to WCW and stuff like that.
Very cool. Yeah, no, I really wanted to kind of dig deep into some of these early days with Mid-Eastern Wrestling Federation there. I wanted to know, do you remember the first time you had your first match and how did it go?
Absolutely. I wrestled a gentleman called Mark Schrader. His name is Mark the Shark Schrader. He gave me WF. He was kind of like a guy that's been there in WWF for like 3 or 4 years. And I was quite nervous, of course. Obviously, it's my first match. But we wrestled in a bingo hall. And I walked out from the back, and there was a whole kind of bunch of 25 people. So it was like, man, I didn't care if there was 2 people out there, man. I'm walking out to the ring. I had my music going, and excuse me, I'm sorry. I when I went out to the ring, they were putting me over, and Mark was a little like, wow, this guy just started, not even 7 months ago, and he's already putting me over. Me, I was just a champion for WWF, and if you knew my character, if you knew the way when I wrestled in WCW, I was a brawler, man. That's why I was a big dude. So my match when I went out there was, we're gonna put the baby face over a little bit, you know what I mean? But then that's when I took over as a heel, and I just pummeled them, and it was an exciting match. Mark really took good care of me, as to the fact that when you're green as I was in the ring at the time, and he was, I guess you could call him a veteran at that time, WWF, he really took care of me. From then on, I wrestled the likes of, they had a guy named Shane Shamrock, a guy named Earl of Pearl, and there's a gentleman named Crocus, or not Crocus, John Lustin. And he was like one of the guys who's kind of like the owner of the WWF with a guy named Danny. And he was the champion. And he says, well, we don't want you to be the champion, but we want you to be the Mid-Atlantic heavyweight champion. I said, okay. So I went out there and I had an incredible match. I mean, at this time, there was like 300 people there in this little bingo hall. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is great. They're chanting Knuckles, Knuckles, Knuckles. And then they should know that I'm the bad guy because I'm asking when I walk in the ring. How the gimmick went was I'd walk down, I'd get in the ring, and I'd ask everybody for the IDs. I'd ask the wrestler I'm wrestling, and then I'd ask the referee. And if they didn't give me their IDs, they'll get knuckled. And everybody started saying Knuckles Zandwich, Knuckles Zandwich. And I'd get on the mic and say, no, it's Knuckles Zandwich with a Z. And if I hear anybody else call me Knuckles Sandwich, I'm sending you back to Burger King. You're going to find out what a knuckle sandwich is. And believe it or not, people think that some gimmicks are like not cool or, oh my God, that's kind of not. It was the most incredible gimmick. It was over. I was walking down the ring and people flashing their IDs. And then I had my match with, his name was, it was Earl Pearl at the time. He was a middleweight champion. I beat him. It was a great match. I had my family there, which was, God bless, the rest of peace, my mom and dad. They were there, and it was exciting because I had gotten paid that Friday for my real job. I spent my whole $800 on every ticket money I had to buy every ticket in the world to make sure all my friends were there. And it was exciting, man. And when I won that, I tell you, it was just a dream come true because, I loved wrestling. I still love wrestling. It's in my blood. And when you get in that ring, there's no other sensation when you're in that ring and people are chanting your name. It's incredible. It really is.
Absolutely. I felt that feeling before myself, so I know exactly what you're talking about, that rush when you hit the curtain. You're in character as soon as you walk out there. Doesn't matter how nervous you are, 2 seconds before you walk out, boom, you hit that curtain. This is home,
It is. And then, I wrestled, after I became a middleweight champion, that's when we started, ECW guys started coming to WWF. And I remember I walked in and I didn't know who I was wrestling one night. And they said, I saw Raven backstage. They said, you're going to be wrestling Raven. And this is going to be Raven's last match, but that's when he went to WCW and started the flock. And I tell this story all the time. I had just won Wrestler of the Year, so I had my little picture frame. And of course, everybody knows how Raven was in ECW. He wants to be the star. And when I went in that ring, when I turned back around, he grabbed that picture and smashed me right over the head with it. And I didn't even start the match. I was just accepting my award at the time. And we came back. We had a match, chairs, tables. It was phenomenal because at this time Raven was big, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm wrestling Raven from ECW. This is like a dream come true. You know what I mean? I'm wrestling a star. You know what I mean? He's so I beat him. And then I remember correctly, I was walking down out of the ring, walking down back to the back, and he was in front of me. And I think I turned around because a fan had said something to me, so I just want to turn around and talk smack to the person, with the fan. But when I turned back around, Raven was standing right there, and he DDT'd me right on the concrete floor. And he gave me a big giant knuckle, and he said, "Welcome to the business, son." And I was like, okay. And in the meantime, I got the knot on my head. So I took it like a champ and went home. It was like, wow, this is what it's like. So
excellent. I love hearing that. And of course, you just alluded to earlier Balls Mahoney, who was working at the time as Boo Bradley.
Yes.
Anytime I know someone has crossed paths with this man, I have to ask if they have any Balls Mahoney stories.
Wow, I do. So I was backstage, and I knew I was wrestling Balls at the time. He was Boo Bradley at the time, but and he's a big man. I mean, I don't know if people really knew who he was. Rest in peace. You don't realize how much of a big man he is until you're like up next to him. And he's not necessarily as tall. He's just a big dude in general. So he comes to me, and you're thinking you see this big giant guy walking up to you, like, oh God, Lord, this, okay, I'm just gotta be cool here. And he's like, okay, buddy, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have this match, and I'm gonna hit you, and I'm gonna do all my little stuff, and I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, you're thinking this guy is not going to come and like, hey, man, you're going to listen to me and I'm going to beat you up. And that's all he's going to be doing. Nah, man. And I tell you what, I had the belt at the time. So the match was that we were going to do a swerve, and I was going to just, get counted out of the ring, and I was going to keep the belt. But this is the second time I had run from him. So we had the match. We're having a match. And next thing you know, Balls jumps out of the ring, grabs a beer, starts drinking it, grabs a hot dog, starts eating it. And I'm like, I've never been in a match like this. I'm like, what? I'm like, I didn't. So he kind of took me off character a little bit because I was like, I didn't know what to do. So then he eats the hot dog, he drinks the beer, comes aside. He gives me his kick, which when he gave me his kick, he let me know that he gave me his kick. And I rode out a ring. That was it. So we get back in the back, and we're chilling. Well, we're not chilling. He was like, whatever. And he walks up there and he goes, hey, buddy, would you like a hot dog? And I was like, yeah, I would like to have a hot dog. And he goes and grabs a hot dog, and he shoves it in my face, takes ketchup, squirts it all over my face and all my mustard. He goes, there's your hot dog, Knuckles. And then that was it. I'm standing there, they're taking pictures, and I'm like, wow, I got mustard and ketchup all over the face. But I'm cool with that. I'm still the champ, so I'm good.
Very cool. And more research that I did when I dug deep into your time before WCW. The internet can be wrong sometimes, so please correct me if anything's wrong. But I noticed you possibly worked a lot with Kevin Sullivan in 1998 in some Falls Count Anywhere matches.
Oh, I'm impressed, my man. I'm very impressed. So to really get back to how I got started to WCW, and I'm going to rewind a little bit back before Kevin Sullivan.
Sure.
Well, I moved to Florida because, when you get in the business like I was and I am, you you realize if you want to be an actor, you got to move to Hollywood. You want to be a singer, you got to move to Nashville. You want to be a wrestler, you got to move to Florida. I mean, that's just like the name of the game. So I moved down to Florida, and there was an ECW show. I moved down to St. Petersburg, Florida, and they were having an ECW show in Fort Lauderdale. Well, of course, because I wrestled Lights of Boo and Raven, and I knew a couple of guys, I went to the show, and I went backstage, and we were goofing off. Well, the Bushwhackers were there, Luke and Butch. And they said, "Hey, mate, how you doing?" I said, "I'm good, man, because you're Knuckles." I said, "Yes, I am." He goes, "I like you, man." He goes, "I got a school in St. Petersburg, Florida. I would love for you to have Knuckles from MEW and ECW to come train well, the students." And I was like, I'll come train. I mean, I'm not wasn't looking for it as in like money-wise. It was just to be an honor to be asked by Luke and Butch, the Bushwhackers, to be, trained. So I started training. Luke had come to me and said, "Look, we'll get you in a show up in Ohio. We're gonna fly you out, and well, this is my first gig. I mean, they'll buy my ticket for me, they'll buy my hotel for me. Obviously I'll just ride with them." Well, a funny story about that was, if anybody knows about wrestling, when you start the wrestling career, you're not staying in some $500 million mansion. You're living by the means that you can live, if people get my understanding. So when Luke and Butch pulled up, I'm looking, I don't see them. And they called me on the phone. They were like, "Hey, man, we're not coming in your neighborhood. You're going to have to walk out to the street because," and I'm like, "Okay." So here, you got this big dude walking down with his bag. Like, I'm looking for him. I get in the car, and the lights of Brutus the Barber Beefcake's in the car. And I'm like, wow, I'm like nervous because at this time I've never even been around any stars. I mean, I'm talking like these guys are legends. That Bushwhackers Hall of Famer, Beefcake's a Hall of Famer. And I grew up watching these guys. I mean, these are the guys that I'm like, this is the reason why I want to wrestle. So we got to the airport. Jump ahead. We got to the high school we were wrestling. It was in Ohio, Cleveland, Ohio, I believe it was. And I get backstage. They said, "Okay, you're going to be wrestling Kevin Sullivan." And I'm like, oh my gosh, Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, crazy, just like, I'm like, great. What kind of match am I going to have with this guy? Now I'm nervous. It's the first time in my career that I've been actually like nervous. I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm doing this in the locker room, and I'm like, wow. Well, Kevin comes up to me and he says, "What's going on, my man?" I said, "What's up?" I said, "I'm Kevin Sullivan." "How you doing, sir? My name's Dave Burkhead." "No, you're Knuckles." I said, "Okay, I'm Knuckles." Okay. And he goes, "What kind of match how long have you been wrestling?" So, and I was, "Oh yeah, I've been wrestling for years." I'm like, No. "How many times have you been on national television?" None." "Okay. Now, next time I ask you a question, you answer it." "Yes, sir." I'm saying, okay. So he goes, "What kind of match would you like to have?" Well, at that time, I've always been known as a hardcore guy like that. I said, "Well, Kevin, do you remember the match you had with Chris Benoit?" Which I know you remember that match in WCW when they went all over the place in the bathroom. I mean, it was like some serious heat. And he said, "Yes." He said, "I want to have that match." He goes, "Oh, I like that. I like that." I said, "Okay." So I was going to walk out to the ring with the chair. That was kind of my gimmick towards the end. Walk out with the chair, and I stood up on the ring, and I was talking to Travis like, "No, I'm wrestling Kevin Sullivan. He's an old man. He needs to retire, but I gave him another chance to see what he can do." And then he came in, these little boop, 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 he goes, and hits me right over the back with a chair. And that was all she wrote. I mean, we went back and forth and back and forth. Well, we got out of the ring, and in the high school, there was a kitchen. So he took me to the kitchen, and I turned around and he hit me with a pitcher, like a pitcher that you put beer in back in the day, like a plastic one, and he gouged me. I mean, I had a cut from here till here. And then it was like all night. And it was just, I couldn't even see. I mean, it was like in my old days, blood everywhere. I couldn't see. So he said, "I'm going to take you up. I'm going to throw you off the balcony that we discussed." At the time, we had discussed a little balcony. It was probably about one story or something like that. Well, we're walking. We're going up. We're like, But this is a lot longer, a little further than one balcony. Next thing you know, he hits me. He said, boom. And that's pretty much when he hits his last punch, to take the bump. And next thing you know, I'm going down. I was 5 floors up, landed on the merchandise table, shattered that. Place is popping so hard. And I thought that we were done. Of course we're not done. That's not Kevin Sullivan's style. Gives me back up. DDTs me on the concrete floor. Throws me through another table. Gets me in. Does the trio wolves. Does a stomp. And then we go back in the back. Well, we had 3 nights. And brother, they were the hardest 3 nights I ever did for my life when I wrestled. We was 3 nights. Like the second night was a ladder match. The third night was a scaffold match. And we popped it so hard, my man, that the promoter was like, "You're coming back, Knuckles." So on the card was me and Sullivan, Bushwhackers against Public Enemy. And at that time, Brutus had become the disciple for NWO. And he was wrestling, but actually it was OWN. And he was wrestling Virgil for NWO. So that was a big card for me, back at that time, Well, we were just like the mid card. The next 5 shows after that, me and Kevin were the main event. And after one match, I remember Virgil, and they're like, "Man, you got to." And at that time, Kevin Sullivan was the booker for WCW. He said, "You got to get Burkhead in the WCW, man. You have got to get him in there." I got the call one day. It was a Monday. And the funny story about it is my electric was just about to cut off. And I was going to have no phone. We had landlines at the time. Wow. That's how bad it was. And he called me. He said, I forgot who it was from the office. It said, "Just Dave Burkhead." I said, "Is this song from WCW? We're going to be FedExing you a ticket tomorrow. You're going to be wrestling Saturday night." And that was it, my man. And Kevin Sullivan did wonders for me. And then Jimmy Hart became helping me out a lot. Arn Anderson was pretty much the guy on Thursday Thunder. Pretty soon I'm wrestling on Thursday Thunder. And they're putting me like against guys. And I wrestled Scott Norton one time, and he went backstage and said, "This guy's the man. You need to start putting him over a little bit more." And I don't mean put me over winning, but put me over as in more like start letting him get some. And then that's when the hardcore stuff came up. And I'm sure we can talk more about that. But that's the Kevin Sullivan story, yes.
Right, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. I thought that might have had something to do with you possibly going to WCW because it was so soon after that you ended up making your debut there, which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, your first match was against Bobby Blaze at the Georgia Mountain Center in Gainesville on Saturday night. How do you feel your first outing went for WCW? How exciting was this for you? You must have been nervous knowing that this was going to go on TV.
Well, the funny thing about it was I didn't know I was going to be on TV. I didn't even know I was going to be that. And it was like they gave me the ticket on a Friday. I'm sorry. I got the ticket on a Monday, and I flew out because people don't realize that we do our TV tapings on Tuesdays for Saturdays. So I flew out. I got the ticket Monday, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm flying out." I didn't have no shorts. I had my gimmick as a Knuckles gimmick. I didn't have like wrestling gear. So I'm calling around to my boys up here on the Independence going, "Hey man, can I use your shorts?" And that's when that freaking infamous purple shorts came out, which they didn't last long, but I had to wear them. But to get to the match, though, it was, let me tell you, buddy, brother, I was nervous. I mean, like, nervous. I mean, you're going into the war room, what they call it, and they said, "Hey, Dave Burkhead, come here, get in the war room. You got to talk to Arn Anderson and Jimmy Hart." And I'm like, "Oh my God, now I'm meeting the Four Horsemen guy." And I'm like really nervous. You know what I mean? I'm like, there's like probably 23,000 people. Nah, I wouldn't say that. Probably I was about 15, maybe 50,000, somewhere around there. But it was like, you're looking at the crowd, and I'm wrestling in front of what, 400 people at the most. Now I'm in front of thousands of people, and I'm like, so Bobby Blaze at the time, I just came out of Georgia wrestling, like I think in Tennessee, like NWA part of the Tennessee back. So they really liked him. And as for my match, I'm going to have to say, and I'm critical of myself, just like most people are, I probably could have had a better match. But being my first match on TV, I was nervous. I had to be a little stiff. But Bobby took great care of me. He slowed me down. And that's the main thing. You want to get in there and you want to start rushing. And you're on a time limit, of course. Well, I did all my stuff in 30 seconds. And Bobby's like, you got to slow down, my man. And Bobby did his bridge,
yeah,
you know,
Northern
back
Lights.
His famous bridge, and I got done. It was great, really was.
Awesome. Look, coming through 1999, I kind of wanted to, I guess, do a little bit of a timeline run through of all these different guys that you work with, because there's so many different people, different styles that you're working with. It must have been quite interesting for you, working with these guys, especially I believe the 2nd of February 99, working in Wisconsin with Chavo Guerrero Jr. How did you feel working with Chavo?
Chavo was great. Actually, that's kind of got my career started because, I'm a big guy. I mean, and Chavo is a luchador. He's going to be flying and high flying and jumping around, and I'm a big dude. And I remember the advice Arn Anderson told me. He said, because Arn loved me and Jimmy loved me. Because, I put on a show, you know what I mean? And Arn said, this is a different style, but even though it's your second match, I know you're used to one style, but just go out there, let your training, let your talent, let everything take over. And, man, what a great match me and Juventus had. Man, great match. He is so awesome. And his hurricanrana at the end was great.
Yeah.
And it was just a great match. And actually, I wrestled him a couple times in WCW, actually.
Oh, Juventud.
What's that?
We talk about Juventud, were you?
Yeah. I wrestled Juventud, I think twice in WCW.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I've got that here. And I was asking about Chavo as well.
I'm sorry, Chavo. You did say Chavo. I apologize. Well,
That's
Chavo
okay.
was, Chavo, Juventud was good. But Chavo was, at that time, they were putting him over. Yeah. And when I wrestled Juventud, when I was with Chavo, I apologize for that. But Chavo, he took care of me. He, we did our thing in the ring, and he let me get over on him a little bit here and there. And he was really, really, really good as in the fact that he sold the crowd really good. So he made you understand the aspect in the ring to make sure you sell the crowd. Don't just get up there, wrestle, do your moves, and be done. Yeah. You got to make sure you got the crowd into it. So he helped me along in the match. I'm not going to really talk too much about it, but he helped me along in the match and told me, man, sell the crowd, David. Sell the crowd, man. Make it look good. Show them big guns you got. Just get up on the ring and say, this young, And, man, it was like, oh, my God, bro, I guess. And I'd beat him up, and I'd get him, and I'd slap him. He'd do his slap, and I'd do my slap, and then he'd slap me, and I'm doing my thing, and I'd climb out the ring, and I'd get back in, and But it was a great match with Chavo. And I tell you what, we got backstage. He thanked me very much. He said, it was an honor to wrestle you. And when you got guys like that have been in the business, that have the history that he has, and they're thanking you, wow, man, it's a feeling that I can't even explain,
That's very cool. That's why I wanted to go through this timeline, because what we're going through here is like your dream has come true, and you're experiencing what you always dreamed of, which I think is really awesome. And it's a story that people need to hear, because people like hearing stories about dreams coming true. 16th of February 99, you work with Jerry Flynn. That's a bit of a different kind of guy to work with the, the martial arts. How did you like working with Jerry?
Jerry was different because of the fact that, like you said, you brought his martial art background, and that was his gimmick in the WCW, his martial arts and all that. So I went from Bobby Blaze, who's like a technical wrestler, to Chavo, who's a luchador, jump around, all that, to Jerry Flynn is just kicking you and like that. So I literally did 3 different people I wrestled my first 3 matches, almost. You know what I mean? So, it was like, and I don't know if that's how they. I'm trying to think. I think that's maybe why they did that. If you're a young rookie and they want to say, okay, I got to see how this guy's going to wrestle all these different styles to see what we can get him in to start his career going further. So the match with Jerry was very simple. I want to put it that way. And I don't mean that as a disrespect to Jerry, because Jerry is very talented. A lot of martial arts, black belt, very talented. But what I meant by simple was it was an easy match because of the fact that a lot of martial arts, a lot of kicking. I did, get on him a lot. And then, of course, he's very arrogant. He's got his mullet going on, Jerry Flynn with the mullet. So, but it was a nice match. And, Jerry took me back. And again, the professional person that he is, said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Because, people don't realize when likes of me and Lash LaRue and the guys that are coming up, we're putting these guys over. I mean, we're making these guys become bigger than life. And that's our job.
Yeah.
Everybody has the job to do. And that's my job. And for me to go backstage and hear him say, thank you very much, I did my job, and that was the deal. And that's the whole point of it. Wrestling is a job. Yes, it's a great career. Yes, it's a great profession. But it's a job like anything else. And you got to be good at it or not good at it. You've seen guys that'll come in and you don't see no more of them. You see likes of me come in, I'm there until the end, so.
Exactly. And I consider guys in this position just as important as the main event guys, as far as I'm concerned, because there wouldn't be main event guys without guys that they beat on the way to getting to the main event. As I've said to many guys that have worked on shows like this before. And another guy that I believe you worked with 3 times during your time in WCW, the Cat Ernest Miller. That's a bit of a different one as well. Same as Jerry Flynn, but the Cat, sometimes be, I don't know, he was a little wild, I would have to say. How did you like working with the Cat?
Well, how do I put this politically correct? I did my job and I went out there. But it was difficult at times, though, because of the fact that, like you said, it could be a little wild. You got 10 seconds, or I forgot what it was, 3, 5, 10 seconds, or I'm going to bust you or whatever. Yeah. And it's like you're in the ring trying to get into it. And it's like, to me, you just had to make sure you stayed a character. And like you said, I did wrestle 3 times. They were trying to get me and Cat to start having a thing, you know what I mean? Start going back and forth. And because if you remember correctly, if you watch the matches, the first match was pretty much a Cat match. He just did his kicking and his style and his little, dancing in the middle and then throwing me out of the ring, and his manager beat me out of the ring. He threw me back in. Well, then they started talking smack, and I remember, then I turned around and I gave him that big clothesline in one of the matches.
Yeah.
And they wanted to start putting me over. And I think what the storyline was going to end up going, if I think what would have happened was, if we would have kept going, that I was eventually going to go over on him. Because if you see how it was going, it was going to go like that. But of course, I only wrestled that last time, and I can't even tell you actually the reason why I never wrestled him again. But I think he went on TV more, and they started putting him in a main event, and I don't think it went over as good. But he was a good guy. Cat Ernest Miller, another wonderful guy, nice guy. We, get backstage, he's great. Thanks you all the time. And I mean, they brought a lot of these martial art guys at WCW, and then it was just different. It was different to work with those guys, as in a wrestling guy like Chavo or Hoottoot or a couple other guys I wrestled to that are actually wrestlers. That is.
Of course. And, again, I wanted to bring up this guy because it's again, now this guy you're working with next that I'm bringing up, he's more of like a bigger guy, a powerhouse wrestler, I suppose. But I've had some conflicting reports from people on how they feel about him as a person. Van Hammer.
Wow, Van Hammer. I think it's a late Van Hammer, right? Didn't he pass away late, Van Hammer, or did he not?
No, he's still around. I think he is in jail.
Yeah, you're right. Van Hammer was very stiff. And his work in the ring with me, I can't complain. I don't know what all the other guys say. Besides him being stiff, I had a great match with him, actually. I mean, it wasn't a very long match, though. If I remember correctly, it was a very short match. They were really putting him over hard. They wanted him to be the big guy, beat people up. And the way my character is when I was with WCW is, as for being a big giant guy like I am, another big guy throwing a big guy around and made him look really good. And, like I said, I did my job, and I had enough complaints against Van Hammer. I only wrestled that one time, and I actually really didn't even see him much after that, to be honest with you, on Saturday nights.
Right.
So that was funny because I wrestled him one time. I had seen him in the locker room a couple times. We said, hey, I wrestled him. And then after that, it was like, what happened to him? And then he went into his little thing that he did. And then, I can't faded off a little bit. So I didn't, like I said, I can't complain about the match I had with him, but it wasn't much of it, but I can't complain. He was just very stiff, but that's just kind of big guy he is, though, I guess.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I just was interested to see how it went with him. I know he would come and go on TV so much. He would be there for a period of time, then he'd be gone for 4 or 5 months. It was always like that.
Right. That's why I put that in. I didn't see him that much after that. And then you'd see him, and then you didn't see him. So I didn't know what the backstage or the drama they had or anything like that. You stay out of all that. You just don't you just don't get in there. You just join and do your job. But there had to be something going on for him to keep going back and forth and back and forth. So,
yeah. One person I wanted to ask you about, because like I have a friend, his name's Adam. He lives in Boston. He's a friend that I've made over the internet for our mutual love of WCW, and especially this kind of era of WCW. And we always, whenever your name is brought up, very soon after, Adrian Byrd's name will be brought up. I just want to know if you and Adrian Byrd, if you were tight, because you guys were quite regular on WCW Saturday Night during this time.
Man, Adrian was where we were tight. We talked outside of the ring. We were really tight because, like you said, we were the main guys on Saturday night. I mean, it was either me or Adrian Byrd. Of course, you saw disorderly conduct a lot on there, and then you brought them that you had an interview with them. But me and Adrian Byrd were the guys. And I loved Adrian. Great worker. Very nice guy. Big guy. We tagged a couple times. We did a couple hardcore matches with each other. And I loved him, man. And he was a great dude. And yes, we were close. We didn't travel a lot because obviously we were from different areas. But we hung out when we were backstage. We pretty much were together a lot, yes.
Right, cool. Yeah, that is another guy I've been trying to find. I can't find anything about him.
I talked to myself, believe it or not. I lost told to myself. I haven't talked to him in 10 years maybe at least.
Wow. Yeah, there's not one little ounce of anything about him on the internet. He's out there somewhere, I'm sure, and I hope he's doing good. Here comes another guy, another big opportunity. WCW United States Heavyweight Championship is on the line, by the way. It's the 28th of September 99. You're taking on Sid Vicious in Rome, Georgia. How did you like working with Big Sid?
Wow. Now, Sid was the man at the time. Obviously, he was going against Goldberg at the time. He was getting a little heat with Goldberg back and forth. So I don't know if I'm sure you saw the match. Yeah. It was great. I went in, I hit him, I slapped him, chokeslammed me, and he powerbombed me. What people don't see on TV is, though, he powerbombed me 5 times. 5. Let me tell you that one more time. 5. So, I guess I was doing it so good, he kept doing it. And I was like, brother, can we not? After the 5th time, I just looked at him like, I'm good, And he went backstage, picked me, 7 foot, whatever he is, picked me up and said, brother, you awesome. Jesus. And my head's going back and forth going, appreciate it, bro, but my back hurts now. Can I go sit down, But, man, Sid is, you wouldn't even know when you wrestle. You wouldn't even, he's 7 foot, big muscle of a guy, and it's like, great, just nice guy, lets you do things. Very, 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 very respectful. That is very respectful. I enjoyed his wrestling, and the funny thing about that story was, that was a Thursday Night Thunder, by the way. I think it was, right? Or is that Saturday night?
It said that was on Saturday night, yeah. But I do think there's something did happen on a edition of Thunder with you as well.
Yes,
yeah.
So I believe he had said on to him, man, I think it was Thursday Thunder. He said, I got good news and bad for you, named Burkhead. I said, really, what's good? He goes, man, you're the main event tonight. Thursday Thunder, main event, live. I said, oh, yeah. I said, yeah, but the bad news, you got to lose to Sid Vicious in 2 minutes, so have a nice match. And I was like, but Sid was awesome, really was. I loved him. And, I'm glad he's doing better now after his whole leg injury and stuff like that,
Yes, he is. It's good to hear that. And thank you for sharing again. See, this is why I wanted to do this little timeline with you, Dave, because I had a feeling that we might get a little story out of each guy that you work with. So that's really cool. The 12th of October, 99, in Louisiana, you take on Luther Biggs, who was getting a little bit of a push there on Saturday night. How did you like working with Luther?
So when I wrestled Luther Biggs, I didn't really know too much about him, and he was getting that push. And I didn't know, I can honestly say I didn't really know nothing much at all. So I didn't even know his style of wrestling or what kind of match we were going to have. So when we got brought in the war room, Arn had said, you wrestle Luther, we're starting to put him over right now. Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, Arnold said, just do your thing, Dave, and like you always do. And I know you guys are going to rock the house. And we had a good match. I believe it could have been maybe a little better match, I believe. But, Luther was a really different person to work with. I don't want to say it was hard to work with him, but when you're trying to put somebody over and it's like they're constantly talking or constantly, because you had his manager out there, right? And, and it's like you're trying to do a match and it's like every 15 seconds is they're doing a talking gimmick. Oh, yeah. And then, it's like I couldn't get in my groove, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And
okay.
Trying to get in my groove. I was trying to. And we didn't have no complaints. I mean, Arn said great match and all that. But as my perspective, my point of view, I think the match could have been better.
Fair enough. And the 26th of October, Alan Funk, a guy out of the power plant there. He's early in his career. How did you like working with Angry Alan?
God, if you saw that match, I went backstage. I ain't gonna lie, I had tears in my eyes. I gave Alan, because that was actually the first match that I got to show what I could do and how my brutal strength. And, because if you watch that match, I clotheslined him and he took the clothesline like the gods. And wow, man. And we were, Sullivan, Larry Zbyszko was like My God, did you see that clothesline? Burkhead just destroyed him. And that's my man. I knew Burkhead had it in him. And he's the up-and-coming guy on Saturday night. And my God, and then all of a sudden, like, Burkhead, what are you doing? You're supposed to be beating him up. You're supposed to be walking around talking. And of course, I heard all this afterwards, you know. But me and Alan, let me tell you, and Alan, if you ever heard about this, see this, Alan, I'm putting you over. You're a beast in the ring. I enjoyed it, and I thank you so much of making me who I was in that ring and letting people know who I was. And we had, probably, if I got to say, probably my top 3 matches in WCW in my whole career, believe it or not.
Wow, that's really cool to hear.
Alan's a great guy.
He is.
Good worker, great worker, and I just wish he could have done more in WCW than he did.
Yeah, me too, because just as he was getting on pay-per-view, then the company got sold and he's back in developmental in the WWE. Heartbreaking. I interviewed him a couple of years ago and we really dug deep into that. And yeah, how disappointing for him, but you know, he is, you know, memorable, and I consider him a friend. He's a very nice man.
A great guy, great guy.
Another guy that you work with, God rest his soul, The Wall. He's, you know, I guess he's quite early in his career at this point. You worked with him on November 23rd, 99. How did you like working with him?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the match, it really wasn't much of a match. They were putting him over to be a big dude like the Giant at the time, and you know, do his slam. So to be honest with you, I can't even really talk much about the match because it really wasn't much of a match. And you know, and The Wall, God, like you said, rest in peace. God bless his soul. To me, I think they were trying to put him over, and it just wasn't working. To me, that's my. And they were trying. They really were. But he just didn't have to be as big as he was. He couldn't really move that great in the ring to me. That's how I look at it. And I don't like coming on podcasts and bashing people. But you know, the honesty is honesty, and that's what the fans want to hear. You know what I mean? And I just don't think he had the as the show or Big Show or all the other big wrestlers. Sid Vicious, you can move around. The Wall didn't have that to me. And our match was very short, very easy. Boom, boom, boom when it was done. So, I mean, that's pretty much about that. I mean, there wasn't much to it, to be honest with you.
No, fair enough. And I do kind of understand where you're coming from when it comes to they tried to push him so hard. He was putting people through tables every week, and it just didn't seem to connect no matter what they did. Yeah. But speaking of another match that probably didn't go very long, but this guy is known as the toughest man in wrestling history. You wrestled Meng on the 30th of November. I'm sure he's also one of the most loveliest men to well, you have to be friends with him, right? But if you get him mad, maybe not. How did you like working with him?
I can't believe. I'm glad you brought Ming up because I was just talking about that match last night, and I'm telling you the truth. We just talked about Ming, and they said what was working with him. I said it was brutal. Brother, when he hits you, you know it. But he doesn't do it as in beating you up and disrespecting you. That's just his style. Yeah. And if you know him, like when you already said to him and when you introduced him, you already knew like that's his style. If you get in a ring with me, you know you're going to get hit. That's all there is to it. But the nicest guy in the world, though, really is crazy, big, giant, Samoan beast. When he slaps you, you feel it the next day, the day after, and 2 days later. But the nicest guy in the world. And I remember that actual match. That was, if I remember correctly, that was in Vail, Colorado, I think.
Let me have a look. Yes, it was at the Dobson Ice Arena in Vail, Colorado. Good memory,
that's how I remember that match because it was not only brutal, but it was cold. So I took a picture of me in a cold wrestling arena, and it was fun, and Ming was awesome. He was really all, but like I said, his slaps, his clotheslines, his whole, work in the ring is very hard, but it's not. I don't like calling it stiff because there's a difference between stiff and difference between hard. And the stiff is the guy to me, just can't work.
Yeah.
Ming, that's just his style. I already knew it when I went in the ring, so I prepared myself for it. But it was a great match. I really enjoyed that match with Ming.
Awesome, bro. Another guy, this guy he's a fantastic technical wrestler. On the 19th of January 2000, Norman Smiley, working with him in Missouri.
Yeah, I enjoyed Norman Smiley. We had a great match. I mean, because at that time, I think he was doing his crying thing, doing a little crying, whatever. What a great match. But now we talked about styles of wrestling, and Norman that was so funny how they put him in that hardcore gimmick, because if you know Norman Smiley, that's not his style. He's a technical wrestler. They wanted to do a swerve, but wrestling with him was great. I had a great match because me and his style was perfect to work in the ring. We actually, I think, worked a couple times because it was great. It was because we connected so much. My brutal beat, pound, and his technical, and we had a great match. I mean, he put me over too in a couple matches too, so I was grateful for that. Nice guy, awesome dude. I love Norman. I wrestled him in a couple other organizations, XWF and stuff like that. So,
oh yeah, very cool. Again, here comes another legend. You're working with him in Amherst, Massachusetts, on the 2nd of Feb 2000. Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah, that was a fun match, man. I gotta admit, that was fun. Hacksaw is Hacksaw. Legend, Hall of Famer, been in the business at that time, almost as old as I am. You know what I mean? So it was an easy match, a great match, and I really enjoyed it. And we talked backstage for like an hour after the match. We just talked. We talked about where I lived, how I became a wrestler. Told me, man, don't ever give up, man. Don't give your dream up. This is a dream come true, and I've lived my dream for 30 years. And just to hear stories like that, the nice guy that he is, just great,
Yeah, and also very happy to hear that he's just been cleared again of cancer. So
yes, thank everybody for
yes. So I wanted to bring up this matchup. I watched this earlier tonight, actually. When you worked with Tank Abbott on the 15th of March 2000 in Salem, Virginia, when he hit you with that final punch of the match, you went down like you were actually knocked out. It was really, I loved it. How did you like working with Tank?
I might ask you, what did you think of the match?
I thought it was great.
It was a great match. It really was. And that punch, I wasn't knocked out, but I felt it. And he did knock me down. So that was no, whatever, how you want to put it. I mean, he hit me.
Yeah.
He was tough. But I got him though, because I think he got mad because I was told by the guys, the promoters and Arn and all them, like, I want you to go in there. You guys are brawlers. You two brawlers. Don't let them just beat you up. I want you to brawl him. And Tank was like, well, and Arn said, no, this is what's going to happen. You understand that? And Tank was like, all right. So I'm sure there's a little upset that I had to do what I did. Maybe that's why the punch was so hard. But, Tank was Tank. And I love that match. It was just a great match. And believe it or not, it's funny. A lot of people like that match. I mean, a lot of people, they loved it because we were just going at it, man. Boom, 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 boom. And then it was like out of the blue, bam. And even Arn, when I was backstage, the funny thing about it was Arn had said, man, are you okay, Dave? I mean, did you black out for a little bit? I was like, no, I was good. He's like, Jesus Christ, you sold that really well. I thought he really knocked you out.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought too. It was really cool. And this one here is a really interesting one that I was going to bring up because it's actually the last match in WCW Saturday Night history. It's on the 29th of March 2000. Hardcore title on a pole match. You got Brian Knobbs, you got Adrian Byrd, Dave Burkhead, Norman Smiley, Rick Fuller, and Al Green, who was known as the Dog at the time. This is the main event. This is the last match in Saturday Night history. Please tell me a little bit about this one and how it makes you feel knowing that you were in the last match on a show that ran for, 25 years.
Well, I'm honored. I mean, and if you watch that, I try to find that match right now. I can't even find it. I wish I could find the whole match on, because I can't find it because.
I can find it for you.
Yeah, definitely. I want you to find it before we send it to me because I want to see it. That match was the #1 match I had in WCW. And I gotta admit. And it was just everybody was going at it, man. Chairs were flying, cans, ladders, people getting punched, people getting suplexed, people getting bodies. I mean, and we honestly, I saw the ratings on that match. That match was one of the top matches in WCW history, actually, because people loved that match. And actually, I got put over a lot on that match. I saw a lot of reviews, people saying, I mean, that they said they should have gave me the belt that night because it looked like I took a beating and I kept getting up. So I think the one part, I think I got hit in the ladder over the head. I mean, I was getting chairs, but that's what they wanted me to do. And I thought I was going to get put over at the time. You know what I mean? I thought that after that match, I was going to get a strap. I really did because at that time, they were like, Dave, just get up, Burkhead, just get up, just keep going, going. Like, a couple times I had the belt in my hand, and I was like, oh, but that was a great match. Like I said, that was a top match in my history in WCW, my whole career in WCW. That was one of my best matches I ever had. But I had a lot of hardcore matches with Brian Knobbs. Like, our match with Brian Knobbs was tough.
Yeah,
they were tough.
Also, another match with you and Adrian teaming up to face Brian and Al Green in a tag team hardcore match.
Oh yeah, rest in peace, Al passed. So
yeah, a lot of guys have. It's really, this is what it's like when I interview people. I bring up all these names, and it's like, God rest his soul, God rest his soul. It's a thing.
To tell you a story, I was really good friends with Al. He lived right here in St. Pete, Florida too. Yeah, we hung out. We hung out outside of like dinner and all that. We were like very, very, very good friends. And when my mother was sick, I had to go back up north for a little bit. I had lost touch with Al, and I came back down. I was like, man. So I saw one of my buddies like, "Where's Al at?" And he's like, "He passed away." And I was like, "What? Really?" Man, that was kind of a sad day because I was just out of the blue, and I loved Al. I traveled with Al. A little inside note to you can throw out there. My traveling guys was Al Green, and I don't know, with Barry Horowitz.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I've had Barry on the show. I've had Barry. Yeah.
That was awesome. We traveled. We were we at hotels. We got our cars together. That's who I traveled with. Me, Al, and Barry. So.
You know what? I think Barry is hilarious. When I interviewed him, he made me laugh so much.
Barry's like the funniest guy in the world. He can't stand certain words you say, and if you say this word, he gets mad about it. The old jobber word. Don't ever say that. We're not jobbers. We're workers. And I agree. And he don't like when you talk certain lingo, and if you don't talk the lingo, and that's Barry for you. But I enjoyed Barry. Barry was awesome. I wrestled Barry before too.
Yeah. I always, when I talk to I've had Dwayne Gill on the show. I've had Don E. Allen, who was kind of a job guy for ECW. I interviewed him this morning actually. I talked to you guys, and I always want to let you know like how important your roles were in these big companies, and so I always want to express that to you. And it's funny because like Barry does not like the word jobber. Dwayne Gill loves it. So it's interesting how different guys that are in that role feel about that word.
Yeah, Dwayne was just, Gilbert and crazy, and he was funny as heck too, man. Great guy. But yeah, Barry doesn't like that word. Barry's very he doesn't like talking about, like, if you ask him matches, he don't like when you start asking him like certain questions about the match. Like, oh, so did you really do this, or did you talk? Did you do? Don't ask me that. No, come on, man. It's fun. I would laugh. Being on, I tell you, you think it was funny talking to you. Imagine being on the road with him in a car. Barry had to have his protein bag, his gluten bag, his this bag. You got to take it out. We got to pull over. We got to get a bottle of water because I got to eat my protein shake right now. In the middle of nowhere. Wow, you got to go get some water. That's all there is to it. And he loved the Subway. I want to be able to talk to him. So next time I'll talk to him, say, if you ever talk to me, say, hey, I was talking to Dave Burkhead. He said that you like Subway. Oh, I do. I wanted to go have a steak or something like that. Oh, let's just go get Subway. Really? Subway? Well, it is. But Barry's funny, though.
That's great. Great. I love those little tidbits of information that I would never find out otherwise. Barry Horowitz loves Subway. Now I know. But bringing it back to WCW here, in my research, I don't see another Dave Burkhead match in WCW. This was a really difficult time for WCW, though, because we're heading towards like April of 2000. The people in charge keep changing. Bischoff's gone, then he's back. Sullivan's in charge of booking. Now Bischoff and Vince Russo are in charge. Then they're clashing, and it's just one thing after another. How did you know, when did you find out that your time when WCW was over? Did someone give you a call, or they just say to you, Dave, things are a bit of a mess right now. We'll call you when we need you. Saturday night's no longer going to be on the air, so TV time's going to get tighter. Please, if you have any information about that, I'd love to know.
I mean, if you were wrestling and, when that was right around that they were thinking about, the company getting ready to get sold and stuff like that. And it's like, I got a letter in the mail and it was like, okay, we're no longer doing Saturday nights. And I was like, that was it. Thank you for, we enjoyed you like that. We use you for Thursday Thunder but then that's when, like you said, everything started getting like pushed to, like, Vince Russo came and Bischoff came and Sullivan was the booker, and then he wasn't the booker, and then Bischoff wanted to do his thing, and because I was there for the NWO,
Yeah.
and then when NWO was done, everybody pretty much knows. Then once the NWO was done, it's kind of went. That's when the David Arquette thing came in, and I'm just not gonna talk much more about that. I'm sure you have your spill on that too, and it was just it started getting a little out of control, and it was like. And then I was upset though, man. I mean, no, that was a dream come true for me, And shit. You there?
Right there. Yeah, still here.
Yeah. So it was a dream come true, and I lived my dream, man. I mean, I made it. I was on national television. I worked with the biggest stars in professional wrestling. And towards the end of my career, it wasn't just one time you see Dave Burkhead on Saturday night, you don't see him no more. I was on every Saturday night for like the longest time. I was on Thunder, and I really believe if the company would have kept going, you would have seen Dave Burkhead on Monday Night Nitro as a main guy. I really believe. I know that. I know that for a fact that they were pushing me to do that. It was unfortunately the time came up, and it was very sad. But like I said, I got a letter, and I thought the letter. The funny thing about it is, I thought the letter was my ticket. Oh man, where am I going tonight? Like that. It was like, oh, But right after that, another organization started up in Florida, and we did that for a little bit. We'll go from there.
Yep, no worries, bro. Yeah, I just, I always wanted to ask you about that because, and guys like Adrian, Rick Fuller, Disorderly Conduct, the Armstrong brothers, Al, Fidel Sierra, guys of these names and this nature, because Saturday Night was gone, the platform that they were utilized on the most. Now, I don't know, I just, in one fell swoop, a whole bunch of guys now no longer seen on television. But yes, you're right. Something else does pop up there in Florida. The XWF, Jimmy Hart and Hulk Hogan are trying this new thing in late 2001. After
Right.
WCW is now gone, ECW is now gone. We need something to fill the void. You get to work there. I didn't actually know this until like a couple of years ago when I got my hands on some of the footage, and I was like, that's Dave Burkhead. It says his name's Knuckles, but that's Dave Burkhead. So I was really chuffed to see, like, oh, he did wrestle after WCW was gone. So please tell me about that experience.
So I knew this was happening for a long time because, like I said, I wrestled Knobs, and Sullivan was part of the deal. So Knobs had called me up. He said, "Hey, Burkhead, I got something working, brother. And when you come in, you're coming as Knuckles, and it's gonna be popping, baby. It's gonna be me, the Hammer Valentine, and Kevin and Jimmy and Hope. We got this going called XWF." And I'm like, "I'm in, bro. Just let me know, And then, unfortunately, the first show was coming up in Orlando. And XWF was Extreme Wrestling Federation, but it was a different kind of extreme, you know what I mean? And extreme, not we had a lot. I don't know if you saw the roster on that, but there was a lot of stars on that roster.
Yeah,
big names. I mean, Flair was there. What's his name? The announcer.
Tony Schiavone. You had Jerry Lawler. You had Vampiro. You had Buff Bagwell. You had a whole mix of WWE or ex-WWF, ex-WCW, and ex-ECW guys, which is a really good mix.
Yes. So when I got the first match shows coming up with the tapings were in Orlando, I got the call on a Thursday, and unfortunately, I had to go home. My little brother passed away. Unfortunately, he took his own life, so I had to go home. And I remember I was scared, like, oh my God, this is my first opportunity to become Knuckles, become a big organization star, and I can't be there. So I had to call Sullivan, say, Kevin, man, listen, I told him what happened. He goes, man, brother, I am so sorry for you, brother, you lost. And then I got a call from Jimmy Hart saying he was sorry. I got a call from Halston saying he was sorry. You know what I mean? I was like, man, you know what, bro? This is a family, and I appreciate that. And we got you. Jimmy Hart made my outfit up, the one piece which says Knuckles on the front of it with the fist. The show was being taped on a Friday night. I flew in Friday morning. I drove all the way to Orlando, and I had my first match, I think, and I believe it or not, was against Norman Smiley, I believe so. And then, of course, their main guy they're trying to put over was Hale.
Yep, Emery Hale. Yep.
God rest in peace for him too. God,
him
Lord.
too.
So yeah, XWF, and it was good, man. It's a shame it didn't go, and I can't even tell you why, because our TV tapings were packed. I mean, packed. I mean, I didn't understand. I don't know if it was the money thing or the funding thing, and I mean, I don't know. They had it all set up, man. Everybody's backstage. Gorgeous George was there. The valet for Macho Man at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was different, man. And I loved it because it was different, man, because everybody back there was a star. Yeah. Everybody. And if that don't make sense, I mean, like, it wasn't like WCW, you go backstage and you got, the likes of NWO Nash, these guys over here, and then you guys over here. And I'm not putting me down or anything like that, but the difference. There, everybody. Piper walked by, what up, Burkhead? I said, what up? I said, what up? Flair walked by, what's up, Knuckles? Hey, what's going on, buddy? Like you guys have just been on TV for 30 years, the main event. That's how they treated you. And it's
Yeah, it's a shame because from what I gather, this is what happened. Because I've watched all the episodes that have been released, and just as it got to that last episode that I saw, I was like, this is starting to I'm starting to really enjoy where the story's going. Sable is there, Reina Mero is there as the figurehead, and I was a big fan of hers, obviously. But I believe WWE, because of this, they gave Hulk a call. They gave Kurt Hennig a call to get him to come into the 2002 Royal Rumble. And then they brought Jerry the King Lawler back. So 3 people immediately. And I think Hogan's name was really important to whoever was investing in the company. And because now Hogan was going to go back to the WWE, I think that's where it didn't work out.
Makes sense, though. I mean, Hogan was the man. I mean, at that time, that was the whole thing. I mean, you got Hulk Hogan, you start a new organization, and you got Hulk Hogan being your guy. Heck, who else do you need? And then you got Hulk, then you got Jerry Lawler, and then like you said, you got Kurt Hennig, and then you got Sable, and and then like you said, once Hulk went over there, and Lawler went over, and Kurt Hennig went over, and then it was like, okay, you lost 3 big guns.
Yeah.
And like you said, maybe the investors like, oh heck, I'm not gonna put no money in this, because now we just lost Hogan, we just lost Angle, we just lost, and that makes sense. I never knew that, but yes, that makes sense.
Right. Well, I'm glad that I could pass on some of that information. I know that there's probably even more to the story, but that's all I really know. But I wanted to ask you, kind of like, after this experience, and unfortunately the XWF did not get to take off the way that it probably should have. What was next for your wrestling career? The only thing that I found in my research was that your final match was February 10th, 2002, but the internet is always wrong quite often when I do my research. So please let me know what the rest of your wrestling career did look like after that.
Who was that against?
Let me have a look. It said you wrestled. Actually, it said you wrestled twice on the same day in February of 2002 for the MEWF. First match, you teamed with Andrew Riker, losing to Bob Starr and Larry Zbyszko.
Oh, yeah, that was the Zbyszko match. Yeah. I remember that.
And
that
so there was no. So please tell me about your when it was that was your last match, and what led you to
MEWF. I wrestled in, and then they called me back up, and we did another show in Waldorf, Maryland for MEWF, and they put me over big time. I mean, I sold a lot of tickets, man, because of the fact that Knuckles is coming back after, and people piled in there, man. It was packed. When my music hit and I went out there, well, first I did an interview. That's what happened. I went out there. I'm like, man, you know what? I'm glad to be back, man. Knuckles is back at MEWF, back in, I'm ready to rock the house. I'm pretty sure they were like chant. And then the champion came out, and we did our little gimmick and set up a match, a tag match, which I wrestled. My partner was Adam Flash. You remember Adam Flash?
I've heard the name, yeah.
Yeah, Adam Flash. He was my partner, and we wrestled the champion and his partner, and put me over. But I'm gonna be honest with you though, I don't know when that was, the date. I can't tell you that. So, and then I had one more match after that, and it was independent in Florida. The Killer Bee, Brian Brunzell.
Brian B. Blair, or was it Jim Brunzell?
Not Brian B. Blair, the Killer Bee. Yeah, he started up a little independence up here, and I wrestled. Do you remember the Dudley Boys? Of course, you remember the Dudley Boys. Well, you know, remember they had a third Dudley boy, but not Spike Dudley. It was
There's a few. You got Big Dick Dudley. You've got Dances with Dudley. You got Chubby Dudley.
Who was the long-haired guy with the glasses? He went to ECW, then he went to WCW for a while. I can't remember who he was.
Not Dudley Dudley?
No.
Hang on, let me just look at the Dudley family. He was one of the Dudley boys. So
it's
it
like,
can't be.
God, who was his name? Guys, you got me tongue-tied now. All I remember, we were an outdoor match, and it was like 100 degrees here.
Was it Jeff Bradley?
And Jeff Bradley. There you go.
There we go. Figured it out.
See, I knew. Yeah, Jeff Bradley. True, it was. It was Jeff Bradley, and man, actually we wrestled. I'm sorry, there was another match on that. I wrestled him, and then because Luke and Butch was always taking good care of me, they were always getting me independence here and there. But then once the independence started slowing down, when WCW got bought out, because then Vince didn't let his guys do independence very much. That's what I heard, and at that time, and you know, he owned ECW, we owned WCW, we owned WWF, so it was like there was nobody out there besides like me and Adrian Byrd and you know, just Fullers and just like conducts, and independence kind of fell off a little bit, and that was it, man. That was it, and it was very sad. I mean, you know, no one's career wants to come to an end. I think I had a lot more talent. I think I could have showed a lot more talent than I had, and but unfortunately, it didn't work out. But I was blessed to be what I did and where I got in the business. So,
absolutely, Dave. And we're getting very close to the end of the interview here, Dave. And I always like to say this to people that I have on the show. You know, I live in Perth, Western Australia, so I live pretty far away. We're actually considered the most isolated city in the world. So I think the fact that like you have a fan like all the way on the other side of the planet, like this far away, most isolated city in the world, I think that speaks volumes. That's pretty cool, don't you think?
My man, it's funny because when I pulled, I don't know what I was doing on my phone, because you did this. Your first message was last 2 years ago. Like, I don't know when it was. I can't even remember. It was like long. And I was like, what's going on? And when you say, hey, I'm a big fan, I'm like, this is great. This is good. You know, my man, listen, I am honored and proud to say thank you for being a fan of mine, and to be able to, you know, wrestle and show you what I had, and you enjoy the matches. To have you on my show, it's a blessing and it's an honor. And my man, I loved it, and thank you. Yes, it is. When you got people all the way across where you're at, and they're saying, "I'm a big fan of yours," you know, it brings tears to your eyes, and it's very thankful, and I appreciate that.
That's cool, Dave. Just wanted to say that to you because, you know, now that I've had the chance to talk to you. We're coming to the end here of the interview, Dave, but we've got our final segment where I want to learn about your favorite things in life. The first three are about wrestling, but after that, it's not about wrestling. It's quick fire questions for a quick fire answer. Let's see how you go. Dave Burkhead, who is your favorite pro wrestler of all time?
Ric Flair.
Excellent. Over the years, is there one guy that you would say that's my favorite opponent?
I have to say it was Brian Knobbs.
Excellent. If you could pick one match that would be your favorite that you performed in your career, what would you pick?
It was the last match in WCW. The ladder match.
Awesome choice. Getting away from wrestling now, Dave, do you have a favorite book?
I like the Harry Potter books. I'm a big Harry Potter fan.
That's very cool. Do you have a favorite TV show?
Baywatch back in
the day. Excellent. Favorite film?
Top Gun.
Awesome. Another great choice. Do you have a favorite musical artist or band?
I'm a big Bon Jovi fan.
Excellent. Another great choice. Getting away from the arts now, Dave, do you have a favorite food?
Pizza.
That's the number one answer on this show. Everyone says pizza. Favorite place to eat on the road, Dave?
Burger King.
Nice. I don't know if you're a drinker, but this one's favorite alcoholic beverage. But if you don't drink, just your favorite beverage in general.
My favorite beverage, believe it or not, is I like Coke. But I stopped drinking much because soda is not that much in drinking much more. But I just like Coke for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, so do I. Just like I can't get it.
I lay off. I was drinking like, I could drink 5 of them. I'm a big guy. It's like, I'm done. I'm like,
The second last one here, Dave, considered kind of the naughtiest one of this round of questions, but favorite female body part. Dave Burkhead sees a good-looking lady. Where will your eyes go to first?
her lips.
Very classy answer. I like it. And the last one here, Dave, I don't think you've said one curse word on this interview, but the final question is, what is your favorite curse word?
Wow, that's a tough one. I'm dumbass. I call people dumbasses all the time. You're just a dumbass, bro. Why you act like a dumbass? I don't use the F word very much and all that, but I will use dumbass a lot.
Very cool, Dave. Well, this brings us to the end of the interview. I've had so much fun. My face hurts from smiling. I've enjoyed so many of your great stories of your time in pro wrestling. So again, all the way here from Perth, really want to thank you for your time here today. And just so you know how much it meant to me to learn about your journey in the wrestling business.
I appreciate it, man. And I'll tell you what, like I said, it's an honor and a privilege to be on your show. I thank you so much for being a fan. I would love to be on the show again. You call me anytime. Anytime you have my email, you have my number. You can call me anytime. And thank you and good luck with your show. I loved your show. I appreciate you representing WCW and putting us over and putting me and the Lights of Bird and everybody else over. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome, sir. Thank you again. And thank all of you out there for joining us here on the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network. I'm Karlifornia. This is my new friend, Dave Burkhead, and we will see you down the road. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Network, that's the way we play. Good God Almighty. Network, that's the way we play. Get puppies. Network, that's the way we play. Get.
The following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.